Dan. How are you?
Good. How's it going? Let me just turn my camera on for you there. Hello. How's it going?
How you doing? Welcome to
I'm
Australia.
well. Thanks. Not there yet, but I am there in spirit right in this very moment.
Well, you're talking to us here in Australia anyway,
Yes.
so that's close enough for now. So, um, so big news is you're here next week in 7 days.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, we are so incredibly excited, let me tell you. It's been I think now going on almost 13 years. It was 2012 for the Soundwave Festival the last time that we played Your Wonderful Country, so
It's amazing to have you back, and there's certainly a lot of hype about seeing you guys. And certainly, congratulations on last year's album, Fire. What an amazing record that is.
oh, thank you so much.
I just I love it. I think it's the strongest album that you guys have done. It
Hmm.
shows not that there wasn't maturity in what you're doing before, but it just shows a maturity and an evolution of the band. And certainly, you know, I think there's a big progression from I Failed You as well. What are your thoughts on the difference between the
Um,
records?
I mean, between I Failed You and Fire, obviously a lot happened. That was about 13 years in between albums. And so I think there is a lot of life experience that went into it. We were able to sort of step back away from the band and sort of do other things. I think a lot of the other projects and other musical things that we were doing away from Kittie in that sort of decade plus that we were away also kind of helped to contribute a little bit. Sometimes stepping away from a project, being in the center of it, and working with other musicians really can allow you to grow as well. Um, I mean, I think towards the end of our, like, I want to say first run with I Failed You, I mean, I feel like when I listen to it, it's an album that the songs, like everything is really, there's a lot of really fast songs, there's a lot of like it's very tight. I think the songwriting is very good, but there also is an element of just a band that has been doing it for a really long time and is also kind of a bit tired. Um, and not to say that the songs are tired or anything like that, but when I hear that, like I hear a band that was touring for so long and so much that they sort of weren't able to sort of branch out and get out of that headspace. And I think the distance away from the band just in general did sort of allow us to explore other things, to come back and put more magic into what we were doing with Kittie.
I mean, those first 15 years of the band, I mean, they must have been insane, coming from being, teenagers and then being sort of really thrust into the spotlight. I mean, Ozfest and being placed on tours like that.
Mhm.
It's hard to imagine that at that age how one prepares themselves for it. I mean, how did you tackle that? Did you just go, look, this is the wave, let's ride it?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there is any real way to prepare. Um, there's no way that you can really wrap your head, especially at that age, to wrap your head around some of the things that you're going to experience, the places that you're going to go, the pace at which your life sort of ends up being. There's no preparation for it at all. You really just have to sort of dive in and just take it all in. And I mean, luckily, when you're young, I think there is a lot of resilience that comes with just being young, and also a lot of naivety that I think can sort of help contribute to not fully grasping everything until, like, I look back now as a 43-year-old woman. And mind you, it is interesting for me to say that, like, our first album came out 25 years ago and the band's almost 30 years old and I'm only 43. Like, I still feel very young. But looking back now with what we did then, like I certainly with my mind now wouldn't have been able to handle half of the things that we went through. And I think it's just we were so young and so fresh and just really excited about everything. And we didn't really understand the gravity of a lot of what was going on. We were just sort of in the eye of the storm and like riding the wave.
Exactly. And that, I mean, it's amazing that you say, Spit is now 25 years old. It doesn't seem like, you know, that period of time has passed us by in the blink of an eye. That record too, I mean, had so much to say for a bunch of women that were so young. Um, without getting too personal, I mean, where does somebody draw, you know, inspiration to write songs like you did on the first record?
Yeah, well, it's tough, right? Because I mean, well, if you look at Brackish, for instance, it was the first song that we had written as a band together. Uh, and so I think at that time I might have been 14 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of life experience do you truly draw from? And so our bubble was small, our world was small, our experience was limited, but we still, I think, as young people, you still have perspective, you still see things in a certain way, you still feel things, especially being so young, you feel things very deeply. And I think that is what resonated a lot with people, hearing the emotion that was sort of put into it. But like a lot of it was just our own life experiences. Like Brackish is about like a friend in like a toxic relationship. You know, other experiences of just being a woman in a band and you know, going out there in the world and sort of being judged or looked upon differently, or yeah, just a lot of those kinds of concepts were in it as well. You know, we did have a lot of interesting experiences being as young as we were, being women, um, and playing out there in the world. And uh, even with the first album, you know, the experiences that we wrote, they were about that stuff. It was very close to home though. Not I don't want to say too deep, but I think the emotion and the you know the seriousness was there.
Absolutely. And how do you feel about that record now, 25 years on?
Um, you know, it's interesting. For a really long time, I sort of felt like there was a real push sort of maybe in the mid to late 2000s to sort of you know, get away from the idea of like new metal. Our first album is a very new metal influenced sound, and it truly is really the only album that we did that really kind of really harnessed those ideas and those influences. And for a long time, new metal was a bad word, and while we did still play a lot of those songs live, we did musically gravitate away from that. And it had a lot to do with, I think, just trying to branch out and try different styles, but also prove ourselves as more than just like a new metal band or like a one trick pony type thing. And you know, that's just the chip on our shoulder that we've always had. It's always like, well, we still have to feel it's tough, the pressure to feel like you always have to prove yourself. Um, but I think I've come to realize how important Spit was, how influential it was, how much it did resonate with people, and how, you know, the new metal sound that we had was it was it was fun, and it only lasted for one album, but the impact of that single album has lasted for the duration of our career. You know, we are still 25 years later still talking about the album. We're still people are still listening to the album, a lot of them. And so it's really interesting to me that it has had this staying power.
Yeah, it has, you know, and I think when I first heard Brackish, it was like, what's this? This is so cool. This is so different. And to have, you know, an all female take on that sound and that genre was really exciting. And I mean, the evolution of the band, as you sort of say, Spit was a chapter and a sound and a style
Mhm.
that's obviously morphed into what it is in 2025.
Mhm.
I guess what I'm trying to say by that is that first record, Spit, really is just you know, an essential piece of early 2000s music. It shaped and changed so many things, and obviously empowered a lot of, you know, I'd like to say that it certainly raised my awareness of female artists, heavy female artists from that point. And that's something that's incredible, and that must be something that feels really rewarding to know that you sort of inspired the next generation and more generations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not lost on me. And I think, while I would not be so bold as to take credit for all of the things that have happened since then, I do know that there are a lot of people that were listening to that album when it came out who were emboldened to be able to speak up, to be able to create art, to be able to say, like, I feel like I can do this too. And I think that is a beautiful thing. If the things that we accomplished and the things that we did and the things that we went through helped to open up doors or just even to open up people's eyes, whether fans or in the industry, to see that, like, it's and can be an even playing field. I think it's rewarding. It's incredibly amazing that, yeah, like I just still I cannot believe it.
Now, the other remarkable thing about your career for me is the documentary Origins and Evolutions. What a great journey and storytelling of that first period of the band. Were you always sort of, constantly on the road recording bits and pieces and documenting things? Did you have an idea that it would turn into something like that and that it would receive, the fan response that it did, obviously with the Indiegogo campaign funding it?
I mean, I think a lot of the documentation that we were doing, especially in the early days, was just us really having fun. And it there was, I mean, all of it, even from the very beginning, like we really had no idea the impact of the things that we were going to be doing. And so a lot of it was just like, oh, this is what you do. We're having fun. Let's record ourselves. Let's document all these cool experiences that we're having. And I certainly didn't think, like, for instance, when we had our camcorder there while we were recording the first album, that, like, it was, I think, it was released in 2018, that like 18 years later, we would be using that footage to tell our story. For us, it was really just, I don't know, we've always been a bit on the nostalgic side. And for me personally, I do realize the importance of everything that we do. It's everything is just so fleeting, things happen. And it's just so important to sometimes make sure that you've got that documented. You never know when you want to look back, right? And I have suitcases and storage units filled with posters and ticket stubs and all of the bins that we had. It took hundreds of hours to go through everything. And we were just really obsessed with recording and being silly on camera. And yeah, for a really long time, we would take our camcorder or like, handheld camera, because back, the hiatus and things like that, like they were big and then they got smaller and then it became your phone. But it's always been important to us. Maybe it was sort of that we didn't really realize why, but I think it's just cool to be able to have everything, is when you're old and you can look back and say, wow, look at all this cool stuff that I accomplished. But we were really grateful that the documentary turned out as well as it did. We have Rob McCallum, the director, to thank for that. And obviously the cooperation and enthusiasm of everybody that has been involved in the band, either as like past members or like producers or just people who've been close to the band. Like everyone involved it was just such a great experience, and a really nice way at that time to sort of put a whole little cap on things. Because at that time we really didn't know what was in store for Kittie, but it was nice to be able to capture all that.
2022 saw you guys return back to, I guess, the touring circuit again on a more regular basis. And obviously since then, aside from the Fire album run of shows that you did, it's been predominantly festivals. What's your personal connection to festivals, and is it something that you prefer to play instead of club shows, or what's the difference in dynamic between the two for you?
Oh gosh. Well, I feel like festivals, the pressure is definitely off, as strange as that sounds. You're usually playing to like 10 to 20 times the people, but all of the organization is like kind of done for you. Having your own show and headlining your own show obviously has its own merits because you are connecting directly with the people that want to see you, that are amazing fans, people that are just so enthusiastic to see you. Festivals, I mean, they're just so much fun. And early on in our career, we did cut our teeth in a lot of really amazing festivals. We went over to Europe and did some of the big European festivals. The Soundwave festival that we did in Australia was probably one of the best run festivals that I've ever been a part of, or being able to organize well over 100 bands and move around the country like that was an incredible feat. And early on, the Ozfest was something that we did. There's just like an atmosphere that is just so it's just so different. I just can't explain it, and everybody is just there to have a great time. And you may be playing to people that have never heard of you. And so it does sound strange to say the pressure's off, but it just feels a little bit more freeing.
Absolutely. Now, 2025 and the Australian shows are they the first shows of 2025 for the band?
Yes, absolutely, they are. So we are coming to you first.
And where does that leave the rest of the world, I guess, for 2025?
Yeah, well, I feel like last year with the release of the album and the handful of headline and festival dates that we did in the States was just sort of to test the waters. This whole experience of releasing a new album and putting out new music has all been very much an experiment. And so I think that 2025 is already shaping up to be a bit more of a busy year for us. Obviously, we have these shows with Jinjer that we're really excited to be a part of, playing in Australia. And in June, we have a lot of festival dates, a lot of the big European festivals that we're going to be doing. And hopefully, will be some headlining stuff that we'll be adding in there as well. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a bit of a fun year for travel. And we're also hoping later in the summer to do some stuff in the United States and Canada as well. So I feel like it's ramping up already, and we're just excited to be kicking it off, headed your way.
Fantastic. And the shows that we will see here, will they be indicative of the headline shows that you did through the US last year?
Absolutely. I think it's always important for us to, first of all, put on a high energy show. And, it's in your face, it's raw. We are just like four girls up there, just our instruments having a great time, really connecting with the fans. But as far as set lists and things like that are concerned, it's always very important for us to like cover the entirety of our career, at least touching on just about, one song for it gets hard when you have so many albums. You got to try to condense it into 45 minutes or an hour. But we were keeping in mind that Oracle was an album that we did play some shows in Australia on. We sort of toured there and did a lot of press for our second album, so we wanted to try to make sure that we focused on that and play some songs from Oracle. And also, the last album that we released, I Failed You, was also there. We toured with on that album there with Soundwave. So yeah, we just want to make sure that we cover all of the bases, everything from the first album all the way up to Fire. Just making it sound as good as we can.
Fantastic. But we're out of time. I could spend ages talking to you. There's so much more that I'd love to cover, but we'll wrap it up for now. And thank you so much for your time today, Morgan. I can't wait to check out your set at the Melbourne show. But again, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for catching up with us at the Rockpit. And we'll see you in about a week.
Of course. Thank you so much. It will be a pleasure to see you, and enjoy the show. We'll see you soon.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. Have a great day.
Bye. Cheers,
Bye.
you too.